Yes, I can. I can. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Just straight to the point. Um, why is this bill raising a lot of dust, especially in the northern part of this country? And can you first give us a background about this tax reform bill and why it's so important?
Thank you very much for your question. The tax reform bills, there are actually four bills that are before the National Assembly. One of the bills is actually to convert the existing Federal Inland Revenue Service, which is FIRS, to the Inland Revenue Service of Nigeria. And what that means is that the other tax collecting agencies of government right now, such as the customs, will no longer be allowed to collect taxes. All taxes will now be collected by this revenue service of Nigeria. And then there's a bill on tax administration and all of that. So there are actually four bills, but the most contentious of these bills is the one that deals with value added tax, or VAT for short, administration. And the controversy is arising from how the VAT will be shared to the federal government and states and local government. So in terms of background, as we speak today, by the existing law today, all VAT collected, that is net of it, because usually government gives FIRS and the customs a part of the revenue they collect for their running expenses, which is the collection cost. So whatever is left of that, the sharing formula as we speak today is that the federal government gets 15% of the VAT, the 36 states and the FCT get 50%, and the 774 local governments get 35%. Now, there is no issue with the federal government share because there's only one federal government. So once they take their 15% away, it is all for them. But because there are 36 states and the FCT and 774 local governments, the 50% that is going to the states and the 35% that is going to the local government, there is another formula to share it amongst all of those subnational governments. And the existing formula to do that is equality, 50%. That means whatever is in the pot is divided by 36 states and the FCT, and each state takes an equal share. And then the one for local government is divided by 774, and each state takes an equal share. So 50% of what is going to the state and local government, that is how it is shared. Equality, 50%. And then population, 30%. And derivation, 20%. Derivation means where the consumption activity took place. Because VAT is a consumption tax. If you don't consume goods or services, you won't pay VAT. It's only when you consume that they levy it on your bill and you pay it. So wherever that consumption takes place, they are using 20% to allocate that to the centers of consumption. So far, there has not been any controversy because the states are collecting 80% of VAT without derivation. That means as a state, even if you don't do any economic activity, you will still get 80% of VAT because 50% will come on equality and 30% will come on population. So you have a share in that 80%, even if you do zero economic activities. There's no consumption in your state. Now, coming to the new bill, I believe that where to say a state or local government where no consumption activities have taken place will still get a share in 80% of the VAT that is allocated to states and local governments. So they have now proposed a new formula. And this is the new formula. In the new formula, the VAT after customs and FIRS are settled, whatever is the VAT in the port, the federal government will take 10%, and the states will take 55%, and local governments 35%. What that means is that in the new proposal, the federal government is conceding 5% of their existing share to the state government. Because right now, federal government take 15%, states take 50%. In the new bill, federal government will take only 10%, states will take 55%. The local government share remains unchanged at 35%. That is still okay, no contention with that. The contention is now coming in how to share the 85%, or not even 85% now, 90%. Because 90% is states are taking 55%, local government will be taking 35%. So that 90%, there is a new formula to share it. And the formula said equality, 20%, population, 20%, derivation, 60%. And this is what is causing the tension. Because derivation has now moved from 20% to 60%. So it means if your state is not doing any economic activity at all, you can only have a share in 40% of the VAT. You will see nothing from the 60%. Unlike before, where your state is doing no economic activity, you will still share from the 80%. I hope I'm not confusing the viewers and that they are following me up to this point.
Yes, I'm following you.
Definitely.
Yes, exactly. So if viewers are following me up to this point, now the derivation having been moved from 20% to 60% is causing a lot of ripples, especially within the northern states. And the reason is that questions are being asked. How are you going to ensure that derivation is done accurately? For instance, I wrote a short article yesterday. I gave the example of my bank account. When I worked for an IOC in Delta State, they opened a bank account with First Bank, and that was like 30 years ago. And the address on that bank account is still in Delta State, even though I am now domiciled in the FCT. So all the VAT that is coming on that account will be filed to Delta State. You know, so how are they going to attribute it to FCT where I'm actually consuming the banking services? Or like you live in Lagos, your address on your bank is in Lagos, you now came to the FCT, you did a transaction on your account. How will the bank now know that you consumed the service in FCT, not in Lagos? So they can now allocate the VAT to FCT for such activities or transactions. And another point that is being raised is that a majority of the corporate entities in Nigeria, talk about banks, oil companies, shipping lines, airlines, all of these companies, they have their headquarters in Lagos. And for majority of these companies, they do their VAT filing at the head office. So they gather all the VAT across the nation, and then the tax team, which is based in their head office in Lagos, we file it to Lagos. So the question is that how are the filings being done in Lagos be distributed or delineated or allocated such that each of the 36 states, each of the other 35 states and the FCT and the 774 local governments, apart from those in Lagos, get their fair share of the taxes, so that when they are using 60% derivation, those states will also get VAT allocated to them so that they can carry more weight in that 60%. These are the issues that are causing the risk up and down the country. And I think the tax reform team have a duty
Please do
to
follow.
come very
Please do.
clear to all the subnational governments who are agitating on how VAT can be attributed to the point of consumption across the nation by case basis.
All right. It's quite interesting, really, Aviv, listening to it, the way you have broken it down. But why do you think the northern governors are, as apprehensive about this? Is it because they feel that they will not be able to match up with the activities or business activities in their localities like their counterparts in the south, and so they will get smaller amount of the allocations? That's the reason why they are doing this?
So I can see that in the polity, this thing is being made to look like a northern governors issue. I know that the northern governors were the first to fire the first salvo on this matter. But subsequent to the northern governors raising issues with this, the National Economic Council, NEC, met. And the National Economic Council comprises all former leaders of Nigeria, all state governors, and some of the federal officials. And when the National Economic Council met, the governors, so this time it was no longer northern governors, it was the governors' conference, north and south, held a press conference and took issues with the proposed tax reform bills, especially the sharing of VAT. Because if you look at it carefully, as it stands today, if you move derivation to 60%, and the data is not made sweet, because this thing is all about data. That is why in my short article yesterday, I say it is data that is going to solve it. If you move derivation to 60%, and almost all of the companies that are operating in Nigeria are headquartered in the Lagos axis, either Lagos, Ogun State, and then some of them in Rivers State. And these companies don't take time to do the hard work to determine that the goods and services that they are selling and people are consuming, the VAT on them, they are allocating it to the exact states and local governments where the consumption activity is happening. If these companies don't do that kind of due diligence and generate such a data, it is only Lagos State and Ogun State and perhaps River State that will benefit from that 60%. All other states, even if they are in the south, will suffer. So for instance, Ondo State, if you consume banking services in Ondo State and the bank is headquartered in Lagos, and the bank has not taken due care and diligence to ensure that the consumption of banking services in Ondo State, the VAT on it is attributed to Ondo State, and they just fight this thing as if it happened in Lagos, it's Lagos that will benefit. Ondo State will be the loser. So I'm surprised that people are looking at this thing as a north and south thing. It's not a north and south thing. It is about the data. If these companies are not going to do the hard work, because let me tell you, for the companies to accurately determine derivation, they will need to increase their workforce. They will need to probably set up new departments. They may have to rejig their systems and all of that. For instance, let me give you an example. As I'm here in Abuja, I am obviously enjoying telecommunication services. I subscribe to data. It is that data that is giving me to do this interview with you. The telecoms company knows exactly where I am consuming this service because of the base station. My phone is connected to the nearest base station to me here. So with that base station, they know that I'm consuming this service in the FCT. Is that company, that telecoms company, diligent enough to get the data of the millions of calls and data usage that are happening as we speak now, and apportion it state by state, local government by local government, where it is happening? If answer is yes, then we are home and dry. But if answer is no, and they just collect this VAT and file it in Lagos, where their headquarters is, all the other southern states are also going to suffer from this. It won't just be a question of not alone, So This is really the bone of contention, and that is why I said it is data, sweet data, demonstrable data, such that the tax reform committee needs to pick it on a case-by-case basis. They will say telecom services, this is how we will ensure that telecom services will be allocated to where a VAT on telecom services will be allocated to where it's being consumed. Manufacturers who are manufacturing in Lagos and their products are being consumed in other states, this is where how we are going to get the data allocated like that. You have a warehouse in Abuja, but they are carrying the products from the warehouse to go and consume in Niger State. This is how we will ensure that the VAT goes to Niger State. Case by case basis, they need to put out a chart, a demonstrable chart on how the data collection will be made. And I believe that when people see it and feel that, okay, yes, we're not going to be cheated, even though derivation will be based on 60, I mean, we're going to use 60% to divide the VAT on derivation basis. I will not be cheated because it is economic activities in my state that I'm going to use. So let me go back and generate more economic activities. But in the absence of such verifiable, clear-cut process to determine the VAT attribution, I think this is going to be a long fight.
So you've talked about the ways that the processes that could ensure accurate collection of data. But my question is, do you think this is feasible, this reform bill? Do you think it is feasible to achieve? And if yes, looking at how to create a more equitable distribution of VAT, what effect do you think is going to have on the needs of all Nigerians?
So let me be very upfront with my position on these bills, especially the VAT that is in contention. I am happy. I'm actually happy that derivation is now carrying 60% weight in the sharing of VAT process. I'm very happy. I am not a man that loves this whole concept of even federation account. I think that we have turned federalism on its head. In a true federal structure, like in the United States where we copied, it is the states that generate their taxes and revenue, and they send part of it to the center, right? Because the center is doing certain things for the states like defense, foreign policy, currency issuance, economic policy, and all that. So we turned that whole thing around, whereby the federal is collecting money and now sending to states. And it's making states and local government to be very lazy. A lot of governors and local government chairmen don't bother about generating economic activities in their states because money is going to come from Abuja anyway. So I have never loved this federation account allocation system. So that VAT will now be a bigger portion, a bigger pie of the VAT pot will now be shared based on how much economic activities that are being generated in the states and local government. I'm very happy for that. I'm very supportive of that. But the only thing that needs to happen is that the system should be fair and should be equitable. Meaning, if economic activities are being generated in Taraba State, the VAT on those activities should not be allocated to another state like Lagos just because the head office of that company is based in Lagos. So if there is a system where those activities in Taraba State, if there is a system where those activities in Taraba State or in Cross River State or in Akwa Ibom State or in Enugu State or in Niger State or in Sokoto State can be accurately determined and the VAT on them are allocated to those states, I think this will be a good system. And that is why the Presidential Committee on Tax Reform need to do the hard work of demonstrating to Nigerians how the data collection is going to be done and accurately. I think that is the bone of contention. Outside that, I love it, and I believe that the impact on Nigeria will be great because these governors and local government chairmen have fed fat on monies coming from the center, and they have been lazy because every state in Nigeria, given the endowment that we have, is viable. But if you go across Nigeria, you will see opportunities like agriculture. It's not happening at the industrial mechanized scale. No governor has done that. Earlier on, I put out another short article where I said, if we were damming activities, we're damming our rivers in Nigeria, and each governor dammed one river per term. We have already run 6 terms per state. 6 times 36. It's more than, it's about 200 rivers would have been dammed already. And once you dam a river, you can do agriculture by irrigation, meaning it's all year round farming. You don't need to wait for rainy season. You can do a hydroelectricity. You can do a pipe-borne water. You can do fishing activities. You can build tourism around that ecosystem. If each governor was damming one river per term, we would have got 6 dams in each state of Nigeria as of today from 1999. Imagine how much economic activity this would have been generated. Nothing has happened. Not a single governor has dammed a single river in Nigeria to improve agriculture because they are collecting money from the center. So for me, I'm fully supportive of this bill in terms of its modality for allocating 60% to derivation. The whole thing is about data. How are we going to get the data?
All right. It's quite interesting, really, putting it this way. But a lot of people have also become a little bit agitated, especially with what is going on in Zamfara State, a situation where you have mineral resources like gold, not being actually mined by the government. You have non-state actors mining gold, and then the monies go to personal pockets. And like you mentioned also, the governors of some states want to remain the way it is, so that they remain lazy continuously. How much pressure do you think that the president can soak up? Do you think he would give in? Do you think that the pressure coming from the north, because it does look like they are not going to back down anytime soon, do you think that the pressure, the presidency would bow to the pressure?
Well, I am not in a position to tell what the president will do as the pressure mounts. So far, the pressure seems to be mounting from the northern part of Nigeria. Yesterday, I watched Governor Zulu on one of the networks, and he was pushing this case very hard. But I believe that other states, even in the south, are going to push this case as well, because they will be impacted, just like I have said. And whether the president is going to succumb to the pressure and either withdraw the bills or tweak the sharing formula to reduce the weight on derivation from 60% to maybe some other percentage, is left to be seen. I don't know what he's going to do. But if you ask my personal opinion, I would say that the president should not back down. I believe that this bill is good. This proposal is going to help send a direct message to the governors and local government chairmen across the country that you either work or you perish. And once they begin to work, that will be for the benefit of their people, because once you begin to generate economic activities, it means employment will also be generated. You create jobs. And when you create jobs, then there is demand. And once there's demand, producers of goods and services also increase their capacity to serve you. And that is how economies are made. That's how they grow. And so it's a good thing. The only thing is that the president should impress on the Presidential Tax Reform Committee to bring out a standard operating procedure. They should bring out a chart to talk about how data will be collected for consumption activities on each of the contentious issues. Good enough, they've already clarified that imports are not going to be part of this, because as you know, ports are only in the southern part of Nigeria, particularly in Lagos. So if you bring something, if you import raw materials to be used in Benue State, and then they land in Apapa Port, and you pay VAT in Apapa Port, meanwhile the consumption of the raw material happen in Benue State, is Benue State going to get their VAT attributed to them? All of those kind of scenarios must be laid out, and how the data will be collected needs to be streamlined. It's not just about giving assurances to people that, everything will be done correctly. No, just say that for telecom services it's like this, for banking services it's like this, for imports it is like this, for manufactured items that are consumed in another state it is like this, for petroleum products it is like this. You know, break it down so that people can see it. I think that is what is missing in all of this.
All right, Nick Agule, taxation expert, finance and taxation expert. Many thanks for your time. We truly appreciate you for your insights on the program.
Thank you very much. But, let me just add quickly that I'm not a tax expert. I'm not a member of the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, even though as a chartered accountant, it is open to me to take direct membership without exams. But if you say I'm an energy expert, I am, and a public affairs analyst, that will be correct. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time this morning.